Back in this lesson, we are going to learn about subqueries. And the subtitle I came up with this is We All Live in a Yellow Subquery. So if you've ever listened to the Yellow Submarine song, I hope that's stuck in your head now because that's all I've been thinking about while I've been doing this lesson. Keeping track of where we are in our outline, we already completed CTEs, and in this lesson, we are going to compare that to subqueries. In the next module, we'll get some practice. What is a subquery? A subquery is the same thing as a CTE. It's a different wrapping, but it's the same present. So CTE, as we know, goes top down. We have query 1, and then we use that to get query 2. A subquery goes inside out. So we have the query 1 on the inside, and then we move to the outside to get query 2. And how my mind works is it's easier for me to visualize and keep track of things going from a top-down fashion. The subquery, how it goes from the inside out, that to me is a little bit more confusing, but I know some people who really prefer the subquery logic compared to the CTE. It really all just depends on how your brain works and what makes the most sense to you. So either one of these techniques are fine. I do have best practices on when to use each type, because there are cases where subquery is more appropriate than CTE, and a CTE might be more appropriate than a subquery. How to start a subquery. First, you write your initial query. So our initial query from our previous example would be the base query. This will be the inside of the subquery, because if we go back, query 1 here and query 1 here, they're the exact same query. So in CTE, where we had that with base as, that's going to be the query 1 here. It's going to be the inside part. So that will be the inside of your subquery. Then we write the quote shell of the outside query. So I always start with select star from, and then you see these parentheses, they're lined up, just like the CTE. And then you put your initial query inside the parentheses. So our initial query, the CTE, that base query, he's going to go right in here, lined up with the parentheses, and then you do select star. So what is the computer doing in this scenario? First, it reads the innermost query, the initial query. Then it reads the outer query. So that's why it goes inside out. So it says select star from what? From our base query, whatever we did there. Okay, now that we've done that, let's open up the BigQuery console and redo our example 34, but using a subquery and then compare them. Okay, so I have my two queries up here. I have my instructions for 35, and then I have my 34 right here. And 34, just to remind you, it has the base, this long query, and then the select star from base where total fare is greater than 800,000. So I'm going to collapse base, and I'm going to run it. And this, as we went over last time, returns 6 rows. 3 for month 1, 3 for month 3. Okay. So now that we have that, we are going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it as a subquery. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my initial query. This is base. I'm going to copy. I'm going to put in my parentheses, and I'm going to paste. Here's this whole thing. I'm going to tab them in. And then I'm going to do select star from this monster thing. Now I can still do the collapse with my parentheses. I can do that exactly the same. After this from, I'm going to label my CTE. I'm going to call him base as base. So if I wanted, instead of doing select star, I could do select base dot star. And this is dot notation, and basically what this means is that I want to take all the columns from my data that's labeled base. And that's this guy here. Okay, so let's run it. So I can see right away that these are not matching. What happened? I told you they were exactly the same. This guy only has 6 rows, but this guy has all 10. Well, That's because in our example 34, we also applied a where filter. We said where total fare is greater or equal to 800,000. So you see, it's the same thing. So I said, select, give me all the columns from base. From what? From that massive query that we did in 33. Then I want you to filter that and only return the total fare that's greater or equal to 800,000. So let's run it. There you go, 6 rows. And now you see that these match exactly, line for line, same order and everything. So let's not look at the results and let's just look at what our queries look like. Okay, so in my CTE, I have the with base and I make my query, whatever I call it, and then I say select star from base where total fare is greater or equal to 800,000. That's CTE. So first I start with, then the next thing that happens is the select star. In SubQuery, it goes a little bit different. We start here with this from as base, then we do select star from base, and then we filter where the total fare is greater or equal to 800,000. Either way you slice it, this gives you the same information. One's just working inside out, and the other one's working top down. And like I said, for me, visually, this generally makes more sense to me than SubQuery. But even if you prefer one over the other, you need to know both, because when you're in the field, people are going to be using the SubQueries or they're going to be using CTEs. Let's jump back to the PowerPoint and wrap up this lesson. Let's wrap up everything that we went over today. So we learned how to do multiple queries at the same time, and these are called subqueries. And we demoed subqueries in the BigQuery console. In the next lesson, you'll have a chance to practice your own subqueries. See you then. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would be so appreciative if you could like the video and subscribe to help me create more content for you. Thank you.